In Underhanded, the new novel by Jim Billman, Sonny Kristoff shares his adventures during the changing times after World War II with a refreshing inside-out look at history. Written from the perspective of men's fast-pitch softball, this was the time when baseball's little brother became America's most popular team sport. But unlike baseball, its imperfect dimensions brought about its demise. Order Underhanded on Amazon. Underhanded by longtime Southeast Iowa native Jim Billman. Available now.
Well, good morning. It's Brent Adams here with your Rural Strong Morning Ag Report for this Leap Day, Thursday, February 29th. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, where in a few hours the doors will open on the Commodity Classic. Leading off the headlines this morning, not one but two tracts of farmland in Sioux County, Iowa, sold for a near record $29,600 per acre in a public auction this week. In November 2022, a sale of 73 and 1900 acres in the same county sold for the current state record of $30,000 per acre. A spokesman for Zomer Company Realty and Auction confirmed the Ken and LaDonna Huseman farmland sale totaled 117.41 acres on February 27th. The first tract of land was made up of 40 acres and featured half-mile-long rows. With a road and ditch on only one side of the field, 98.7% of the tract is tillable. Tract number 2 is 77 and 4100 acres that are also bordered by one road and is 98.7% tillable with half-mile-long rows. Both tracts are subject to a signed easement with the Summit Carbon Solutions pipeline project. The buyer will receive the crop damage payments from Summit at closing. Was another downturn in U.S. agricultural exports on the way? Here with the answers is USDA Radio's Gary Crawford.
A better 2024 ag export forecast than was expected 3 months ago, but still USDA is projecting exports this year to come in at $170.5 billion, down about $8 billion below fiscal 23.
And so that would be a 5% decrease from 23 to 24 if this forecast were realized.
USDA economist Bart Kenner says to explain the downturn, you've got the usual suspects. First, a continued strong dollar.
And that creates opportunity for other competing countries to sell their comparable products at a lower price.
That brings us to reason 2, stiff crop production competition
from other countries like Brazil and Argentina, who are producing a lot of the bulk products that tend to drive the export values that we see,
especially for corn and soybeans. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
At the same time, the U.S. is expected to import more foreign ag products.
The dollar value of foreign food and farm products coming into the U.S. this year will be up considerably from last year, up about $5.5 billion on up to $201 billion. And USDA's new forecast is $1 billion higher than it was back in November. USDA economist Bart Kenner told us why.
The increased forecast since the November report for agricultural imports is predominantly driven by higher beef imports, which are raised $1.2 billion to $10.1 billion. And tight U.S. supplies coupled with firm demand are expected to stimulate increased shipments of processing beef at higher unit values.
Kenner says growing imports of all foreign ag products will bring on a $30 billion U.S. ag trade deficit. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Well, dairy producers have until April 29th to sign up for coverage for this year under the USDA's Dairy Margin Coverage Program. More on that from USDA Radio's Rod Bain.
The last Wednesday in February, the first day of sign-up for dairy producers desiring USDA dairy margin coverage for 2024. Farm Service Agency Administrator Zach Ducheneau, however, adds that enrolled producers may receive payments for January if triggers are reached.
The coverage is retroactive, so the payment eligibility could certainly be March 4th for producers that have qualifying margins with respect to this program.
DMC provides producers with price support to offset milk and feed price differences. Dairy producers have until April 29th to apply for dairy margin coverage at their local FSA office. Smaller-sized dairy growers who previously had supplemental DMC coverage over the past 3 years can combine that production history to create one adjusted base production history for DMC coverage purposes. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
And finally this morning, spring planting season is right around the corner. And here at the Commodity Classic yesterday, I caught up with fence Isaac Hill to discuss spring planter preparations.
You know, we talk about this. You only got so many hours to do things. And of course, the weather's kind of funky this time of year. So you get like little stretches, little windows where you really feel pressured to get things done. But what do we need to do to set ourselves up for optimal use of the planter?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we need to do is let's get the planter out of the shed.
Right.
Let's get it out. Fold, unfold, make sure you're lifting low, everything's functioning as it should. And the first thing, people talk about yield, we talk about ROI, and that all goes back to the basics. We need our consistency in our planter, we need to perform consistently, making sure that our opening discs are, the diameter is proper to where they need to be, shim correctly, gauge wheels. It always starts with the basics, and so that's typically where we're going to start.
Right. And we talk about any kind of fittings, any kind of anything that could possibly fail, anything that's been sitting, had a chance to dry rot, or anything along those lines.
Yeah, definitely check out all your hydraulic lines, your electrical connections, your CAN connections, anything that has to do with the technology on the planter. Definitely get it once over to make sure that all the connections are set and good to go.
And we talk about it mechanically, but from a safety standpoint, we see some guys get into trouble either when they're not being careful working around the planter, or if something happens in the field where they haven't necessarily taken the time to make sure they've got everything connected properly. All kinds of ways you could get yourself in trouble if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, so the number one thing that we need to do is just to make sure that we take a step back and we're making sure that we're coming home to our families at night.
Right.
Taking the extra step of making sure that our hydraulic cylinders are blocked when they need to be, and being safe overall all around. Yeah.
All right. Now we've got monitors in the cab that can tell us the rate that we're putting seed in the ground here, but to make sure we're efficient, how do we make sure that we're distributing seed properly and that the planter is operating at an ideal rate?
Yeah, so that's the beautiful thing about technology is there's really not a component on the planter anymore that we're not monitoring.
Right.
So being able to make sure that we're out there and we have everything set up accurately on the monitor and making sure that our GPS measurements are set up properly for swap timing and everything is it's going to be crucial to getting out there and making sure that our crops are put in the ground correctly.
You can keep up with the latest from the world of agriculture by subscribing to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast from Rural Strong Media. Each week, I bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot-button industry issues, educational features, and the best in traditional country music. The Tractors and Troubadours podcast can be found at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We also invite you to join us daily on Rural Strong Radio, our 24/7 streaming radio station found at ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app for your mobile device. Each day, we bring you our award-winning agriculture programming, as well as the best in traditional country music, mixed in with a little bluegrass, western swing, southern rock, and inspirational music. Again, the place to find Rural Strong Radio is ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 app. We're portable, so take us with you everywhere you go while you're working on the farm or ranch. Let's get through the workday together. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow with more coverage of Commodity Classic 2024 from Houston, Texas. Until then, make it a great day, everybody.